Good afternoon. How are you doing out there? Uh, my name is Melvin Burns II. Now, when you normally tune into this program, you see Greg T. Roberts, or sometimes you see Greg T. Roberts and myself. On a rare occasion, they let me fly solo. But my friend and my brother, Greg, was not feeling well today. So prayers and thoughts with him. But this is Torn in Two. And as you know, this is our news and information program dealing with the truth. And let me tell you, you want to listen and watch today's program. If you know somebody that's in education, loves kids, works with kids and reading programs, let me tell you, you want to pay attention to this program today. Um, you are going, listen, after the program today, I guarantee you, you're going to be grateful that you were listened and were a part of it. I'm not going to talk too much longer. We're going to get our guest in here. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about reading and literacy, and not just for kids, but for adults as well. Hi, Christina Burns down in Florida. You're here already. So we're going to bring in our guest, Miss Rosa Higgs. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
I was just telling our guests they need to sit down, grab a seat, and we've had a chance to talk a little bit, but I know they're going to be blessed by the show today. So with that, Ms. Higgs, why don't you start off? Tell folks a little bit about your first. Let me tell folks that you have a business that's called Reading 40, and I'm just going. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about reading and literacy. But why don't you begin? So give people a little bit of background about yourself and your family.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on the show, first of all. And my family, God bless them, we're extraordinary people, I think. Um, we can start with my grandmother, who wrote legislation that ended legal lynching in California at the turn of the century. And we can talk about my father, who co authored the Fair Housing Bill with Rumford. He and a dozen other Black lawyers and businessmen wrote that, got Byron Rumford elected to the state assembly, and pushed it. And because they were older gentlemen and Rumford was a young man, he was the last man standing 20 years later when it was passed.
Okay.
Um, and then we have my children's uncle. He was an extraordinary leader, the former United States Congressman Ron Dellums.
Yes.
And he took me to years ago to the United Nations to present. Of course, they didn't like me, and they did nothing with it. I have a son who is a Berkeley City Councilman. My daughter is a wonderful, brilliant young woman, a statistician, and she does analytics for the Oakland Unified School District.
Okay.
I personally am a retired school teacher in special ed, and me and my children have written these books together.
Okay.
And that's what it's all about. They teach people to read within 40 days.
Okay. So the first thing somebody says, they see that headline, teach people to read in 40 days. Come on. It took me 12 years in school and I still can't read, or it took, be facetious, but come on, it takes, 2 or 3 years and first, second, third, fourth grade. And you're saying you can teach people to read in 40 days.
That's right. Absolutely.
In 40 hours. Yeah. So tell us how you can do this remarkable thing.
It's quite straightforward. I teach them the phonics rules of the American English language, not the other Englishes of the world, Australian, Canadian, British, West Coast Africa, South Africa, not those English languages. American English language. I teach those 5 phonics rules, and then I teach them how to break words up into syllables. And that's all it is. It's not a lot. It's not complicated. It's enjoyable. And the children and adults love it because they're rewarded by reading multisyllable words within weeks.
Okay. So I send my child to public school in
Mhm.
Michigan, and they're first, second, third grade. What are they being taught as in terms of learning to read that's different than what you do?
Okay, what they're being taught is something called whole language. For
Okay.
example, the teacher might say, read this page, and there's a picture of a horse, right? And
Okay.
so the kid says, "Hello, Mr. Pony." Well, we know it's not a pony; it's a horse. But
Okay.
the child is being taught to read the picture and not the words. In phonics, the child would be taught to read the word horse as it
Okay.
is written. So that's called whole language.
Okay.
And it is not scientifically based, nor is it proven to be effective.
Okay. So one of our tags on the show is we deal with the truth. Because Thomas says dealing with the truth. So when you say it's not effective, are you telling me that because you're trying to sell what your company does, or is there some research and some science that tells you that allows you to make that bold statement?
It has been a scientifically proven fact that whole language is not effective, as especially when compared to phonics. Phonics has been proven, but there is some people don't like the truth. Whole
Okay.
language was born out of slavery,
Okay.
and what they taught each other and the slaves was the whole language method. In other words, I would tell you, this is a horse, and you will repeat to me, this is a horse, even though the words on the page say, this is a duck or
Okay.
this is a pony. And that way they could keep people illiterate. So they weren't taught to read, they were taught to memorize. And that is the whole language method, to memorize. A principal once asked me, "Rosa, my kids read perfectly to third grade, and in fourth grade, they can't read a thing." I said, "Oh, Reggie, they never could read. They were memorizing. And now the words and sentences are too complex, and they can't memorize all of them." Neither
Okay.
you nor I have memorized the 500,000 words in the American English Dictionary.
I'm
But
sure I
we,
have not.
but we can read them,
Okay.
but we have not memorized them.
Okay. So was there a shift? I'm old enough that I can remember learning those phonetic sounds in school. Was there a shift at some point in education policy where they formally moved away from teaching that? I shared with you earlier, I've over the last 10 or so years, I had a chance to substitute in some classrooms, and I noticed they weren't doing a lot of stuff I did when I was in school, but I
Yes,
noticed they weren't, they weren't teaching, the phonetic sounds. And
you
so was there a shift at some point?
Yes, I'm not absolutely sure, but it has been said that it came with the shift in politics
Okay.
around Ronald Reagan's time.
Okay.
And people were fighting for control of the school system and how things were taught. And as it stands, there are three publishing companies that monopolize, or used to monopolize, not so now, but in those
Mhm.
days, about 30 years ago, they had a monopoly on what books were sold to our schools. And
Okay.
they chose the whole language. Why, I don't know, but they refused
Mm.
phonics. Now they say, oh, we teach phonics, but truly it's not the phonics that I teach.
Okay. And so, tell people before we go for correct, so I don't miss the name of your company is
Read in 40 hours or less.com.
okay. Readin40hoursorless.com.
Yeah.
And so, what are some of the things that you all are doing, or organizations you're working with currently?
I am teaching teachers how to teach this in the classroom. I
Okay.
am teaching parents to teach their siblings and their children. I am helping with homeschoolers. Those teacher parents are very gun ho,
I
and
can believe
their students excel, and they are so happy to find a reading program that puts them way above quickly. See, quickly is what everyone's looking for. Why does it take my child 1 year to grow 1 year? Why can't my child grow 3 years in 40 hours?
Okay.
And of course they can. And now parents know this, and that's where the push is now to get this method of mine into the schools.
Okay. Wow. Just a couple of comments here from Mary Ann. She says she has the ability to focus and then find their learning style to expand. She also says, and this is true, I think I kind of picked this up later. She said, no, it's because good and teachers are overwhelmed and underpaid, and some teachers aren't there to teach. They just show up for a check and not care if the child retains information. So I don't want to paint teachers with a broad brush, but certainly I can imagine some teachers are frustrated, especially when you say they know there's a better way, and policy dictates they have to do things a certain way. And so you say you're working with teachers. You're working with active teachers in the school district who are saying, I want to learn this method.
Yes, they want to learn this method. It's their own money and their own time because the districts have not embraced phonics.
So now if they learn this method, can they use it, or are they not allowed to use this method at all?
As far as I know, they're not allowed.
Okay.
So they have to be sneaky.
Okay. They work it in. Okay.
They work it in. Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay. You mentioned homeschoolers and homeschool parents who are, again, that nature, they're invested in their children's education. You mentioned it's very popular with them.
Yes, it's very popular with them. Black homeschoolers are growing.
Yes.
It's a 13% more of the children are being homeschooled are Black.
Okay.
And we're losing populations at the public schools because they just refuse to follow the science.
Okay.
There is no reason to teach whole language. None.
Okay.
It doesn't prove anything. But phonics does, and they know that. Homeschooled children succeed academically far better than the public school children all over the United States.
Okay.
Homeschoolers graduate on time and finish college on time, and they excel in every subject.
Okay. And so I'm not going to use a devil advocate word, but let's say the people who oppose what you're doing, what are the arguments you hear against what you're doing and what you're teaching?
They want proof, so I send them proof. Then they say, oh, well, we have to go through this, that, and the other. And there's a hierarchy in school. But I can tell you, there's one school district where the school board's in jail because they took money from the monopoly of school book publishers.
Wow.
One superintendent said, Rosa, I love your work. I know it does what it does, but you don't have the resources to get it into our schools. And I was asking for the same thing that the big publishers asking for. 4 years of every kid in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. 4 years of my books for that group for 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. Every one of them gets my books for 4 years.
Yes.
So you don't have the resources. Well, naive as I was, I thought he was talking about printers. Oh, how I'm going to print all these. So I went around looking for printers, right? And then my pastor pulled me aside and said, baby, God bless you. But he's not talking about printing. He's talking about resources like take them to Hawaii. Family goes to Disneyland.
Tour. Yeah, the corporate headquarters in some really nice location, and that's.
And I just said, okay, back to the parents.
The people that really want it, huh?
Right.
Okay. And so, you say now you've been retired school teacher for 30 years. No, not for 30. You retired after 30 years of teaching.
Right.
And so how many years has your company been in operation?
2 years.
2 years.
It was just teaching material.
Okay.
And it started with, I don't know, have you heard of Assemblyman Willie Brown
Yes, ma'am.
of California? Yeah.
Yes.
Um, it started with him endorsing me to teach reading as an opinion, just his, oh, she's good because she used to teach here in Hunters Point,
Okay.
right? So
Yes.
that's when it started. And me teaching in the classroom, I gave no thought of business after that fiasco with trying to get in the school system like the big boys, right?
Uh-huh.
So I just continued to teach my students, and they all excelled and skipped and won spelling bees and scholarships, etc. over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of years ago, my smarty arty kids said, "Mom, make it a business." I said, "Okay, you make it a business, and I'll keep doing what I do." I don't even know what that means. So one of them did the papers, and the other one did the bank accounts, and here we are.
Great, great. And I'm remiss in not saying this. Tell folks where you are located.
Physically located.
Yes.
I'm right now in Berkeley, California, about half a mile from where I was born, and
Okay.
about 4 blocks from where my mother was born, and about 2 miles from where my grandmother built the YWCA for Black girls.
Okay. Okay. Again, we're a local program here in Muskegon, but we get people viewing this, as you know, all over the world. So I
Yeah,
wanted people to know if they want to find you exactly where you are.
Berkeley, California, Berkeley, right?
Now, as I hear you speaking, and I hear some of your family history and some of the people you mentioned, this is Black History Month,
Hmm.
and so I can see that your family again is steeped in Black history itself. We are talking a little bit earlier for you as a reader and educator. When we first say Black History Month, what kind of thoughts come to your mind? You're not currently not teaching in a school system, but what are some of the thoughts come to your mind when we talk about this whole area of reading and literacy and what it's meant to us as Black people in particular?
Well, I told you I was a radical kid, right?
Okay.
My family got scared to death when I let my hair go natural. They didn't even know my hair would kink up, right? So I think about the Black Panthers. Of course, I was a Black Panther in the
Okay.
early days of
Okay.
when we were all about education. And I used to, my girlfriend's church, St. Augustine's Church, where we made the breakfasts for the kids.
Okay.
And I couldn't cook, but I had a car. So they let me stir the pancake mix and drive the food around to the different kids who couldn't come into the church to eat. That's where they have to be given credit for Head Start and the breakfast program.
Okay.
That's what we gave them. And Head Start was teaching them phonics in kindergarten and pre-K. My volume 1 is exactly what those children were taught back in the 70s. All right.
Oh,
So
okay.
that makes me think of that. And then when I look at Martin Luther King Boulevard, do you have one in your town?
We have yes. Yes, we do. We have it's Martin Luther King Drive, but yes, we have one. Yes. I think it's required in the Constitution somewhere now that if you have a certain percentage of African Americans, you have to have a Martin Luther King Drive. So.
Right. And if it's true here in Berkeley that, and I saw it in Atlanta and a couple other places. I don't know about every city, but it's the old red line.
Okay.
Is that true where you are?
No, it's not. Our community is quite developed that way, but not that's not dissimilar to a lot of communities.
Yes. So every time I drive by Grove Street, which is
Okay.
now Martin Luther King, it reminds me of the red line. We were not allowed to buy property on the east side of that street. We had to stay on the west side or the south side.
Okay.
And that's the bill that my father wrote.
Okay.
So it makes me think of that. I'm not very adept. I think of Uncle Tom's Cabin a lot, especially when I hear someone call someone an Uncle Tom, and I applaud them, and it really confuses a lot of people who haven't read. And then I think about, oh God, they probably can't read. They're listening to somebody who doesn't know or is lying to them, like a whole reader, right?
Yes.
So I can see the vicious cycle of institutionalized, not just racism, but oppression, because there are plenty of white kids that can't read either.
Yes. Yes. We have one of our comments here. Michael Anthony Smith, and he said he came in late. He asked, "Well, we saying that schools are teaching reading? They are teaching reading." Michael, what we're discussing is we're discussing the styles they're teaching with, and our guest Ms. Higgs was saying that the style they teach. I forgot what you called it. What you call it?
It's the whole language method.
Whole language method, as opposed to phonetics, which I'm sure you learned here in growing up in Muskegon Heights as well. We were taught phonetics by most of our teachers, and so that's what we were saying, Michael. And Michael's family is also steeped in education here in Muskegon Heights as well.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah.
And when we say teaching phonics, I'm talking about the 5 phonetic rules, the sounds of the short vowels, and the 2 decoding skills. Now, some schools teach some of those rules and not others. I teach it all, which is why my students learn to read in 40 days or less.
Okay. Yeah, I had a chance to see some of the videos on YouTube and just watch those. And again, I watched the students doing the decoding and rules, and I saw them doing it, and I just didn't know what they were doing anymore. You know, okay, I'm gonna ask you, so what's the little thing called over the vowels, over the long sounding vowels?
Those are called diacritical marks.
Thank you, diacritical remarks. See, and I when I see them, I know what to do. I didn't know what they were called, but again, it was to see the students do it, and again, knowing that I know. I haven't seen my nieces and nephews doing that when they're learning to read. You know, I haven't seen them do that trying to learn words. But just Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. So it's not like you've created some whole new way of teaching reading that doesn't exist.
No.
You're teaching something that's been scientifically proven to help our students learn to read. In terms of your clientele, has it primarily been African American students, or have you found some other segments other than people struggling to read that have reached out as well?
Oh yes, primarily African Americans and people who speak Spanish.
Okay.
When I was a professor at a community college, I had classrooms full of all kinds of people from Eastern Europe, Asia, you know, all parts of the United States, the Caribbean, all kinds of people that couldn't read.
Okay.
And, I do teach people who have English as a second language. Now, their ability to learn English as well as the native speaker is different. They may take longer than 40 hours.
Okay.
Because I have more sounds to teach them that don't exist in their native language.
I see. So, and that would include what I'm going to ask you next about adults. You know, I've had a chance to, we have a couple of organizations here that deal with adult literacy. And of course, you know, the fact that it takes a lot for an adult to admit they struggle with reading or cannot read. And so what's your experience been dealing with adults in this area of literacy and learning to read?
I very much enjoy teaching adults. They spend more time in the books than our young people do.
Okay.
And the first adult that I taught was wheelchair bound,
Mm.
And he said, well, just call me. We can do this on the phone. You said it's all sound. And that was my first student over the phone. And
Okay.
he did learn, and now he reads to his grandchildren, and he's very, very happy. I teach all adults. Anyone beyond the fourth grade. Okay. The video you saw were my third graders.
Okay.
All right. But generally speaking, fourth graders.
Okay.
And the reason those third graders were okay, because something about the age of students has gone down.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in the third grade, I think it was 8 or something like that. And these kids are 9 and 10 in the third grade. So they had, they've changed it. Some students are much older. Anyway, I was able to teach them because they were very mature.
Okay.
But I like to start with fourth graders, and it goes all the way from fourth graders to people who are 70, 80.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. You said something earlier. First of all, you mentioned St. Augustine's Church, which the other thing I do is I'm also a pastor, and I'll be talking about St. Augustine in my message Sunday. But I recall a few years ago, we're in a neighborhood in the community, and we're going to do summer school. And we had this nice summer school curriculum, and kids couldn't read it. And we just put it to the side. And I had that same experience years ago when I was in Dayton, Ohio. The pastors there were going to do a program. It was like, let's put the Bibles away. These kids cannot read. And so we went from a Saturday, we'll start off as going to be a Saturday Bible school program to, we got to teach these kids how to read, before you try to read a King James Bible, So I bring it up to say, have you had any experience working with churches and any in any outreach programs or working with their adults and reading in any kind of way?
Frankly, no.
Okay.
People who go to church, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Lots and lots of people who go to church. I did volunteer one summer at a church's summer school, but it wasn't the church. It was the teacher and I.
Okay.
And they gave her space to teach. I don't know what's up with the churches. Now, my pastor is willing, and we're working on something. McGee Avenue Baptist Church, the first Black church in Berkeley, California.
Okay.
My pastor and I are working on something. Reverend Smith is awesome.
Okay.
He's brilliant, and he understands the plight that we have with literacy.
Yes. So
we're trying to work something out.
Yeah, I know we found it. There's a few companies that are known for making, grade and age level material for summer school, for Sunday school, for vacation Bible school, and most of the kids, in my experience in 18 years, is a lot of kids in our community can't read that material.
What happened in one suburb in Illinois? This pastor, with his small church, reached out to me. I taught the kids in the community center to read, and the parents were just awesome. And they said, well, you got to go to this church. So I went to the church, and the children came. And what did I charge them? I charged them a can of food for every lesson to go to the food pantry.
Okay.
And they learned. They were so excited. And the school bus driver, the one who picked up the kids, they have them at churches, right?
Yes.
It was about 10 years ago. And one day he pulled me aside. He said, Dr. Higgs, could you teach me to read? This is the church school bus driver.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, sure, I could teach you to read. I knew he couldn't read. You pick up on these things because you don't say anything to people until they say to you. So I taught him how to read very quietly. And he went from being the church school bus driver to a public school bus driver to a manager of a public school bus driving company. He could pass.
Wow.
I've had women who have wanted to leave their husbands and get their driver's license who couldn't read.
Mm.
I've had people in all kinds of crises that couldn't read.
Wow.
A lot of the trauma in our communities, like the prison to the school to prison
Yes.
pipeline, that trauma is alleviated when they learn to read.
Yes.
When that 80% of the functionally illiterate prisoners learn to read, those who do learn to read don't go back to prison. They become functioning people, just regular citizens, because that stigma that starts at age 9 or 10 ceases to grow. We've pulled it out by the root, because the denigration that our Black kids suffer at the hands of not just white teachers, we know that, but Black teachers as well, we pull the root out, and we teach people to read.
Okay, folks, this is Torn in Two, your news and information program, and we're just having a wonderful discussion here with Miss Rosa Higgs from Berkeley, California, and we're talking about reading and areas of literacy. And interesting, if you want to do some Black history, we'll find out her family is steeped in Black history. If you don't know anything about the whole Berkeley, California area, it's a chance we do a little research there. But we're just having a wonderful conversation here. If you have some comments, feel free to post those on the screen, and we'll try and get those comments and questions up for you this afternoon. We have trying to read some of these. Miss Marianne again says, Denilion was what I was taught in the 80s. Is that right? Denilion is what I was taught in the 80s and early 90s. We had Reading Rainbow and the PBS programs. Our newer tech-based culture has really hindered attention on basic life skills. Kids can't even tell time either. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I think, as you said, when reading struggles, all those other areas of life struggle. Whether things you might aspire to, they get hindered.
That's right.
Any type of personal growth or other goals you might have, they're hindered when our ability to read is hindered.
That's right. She's absolutely correct. They cannot read an analog clock. They cannot read cursive handwriting. All of my students have to learn cursive handwriting.
Really?
Because it's part of literacy.
Okay.
They're not taught that it is. I've had students who were told we don't have to learn the timetables. I said, well, if you're going to sit in front of me, you're going to memorize them. And you can cry all you want. You will memorize them.
So it's my understanding that schools are moving away from cursive writing as well. Yes. I hear these things as headlines, and I don't always, follow up on the stories, but it's my understanding they're moving away from cursive.
Yes. And I learned that when I was teaching college, and I'm writing on the board, and they said, excuse me, Ms. Hicks, what does that say? And I said, can't you read it? And they said, no. They said, we can't read that writing. We can read print. These are college students.
Wow.
So, of course, I had them learn cursive.
Okay. Right. Another foreign language.
These are grown people. Yeah, grown.
Okay. And so you've had your company 2 years, and of course your background's education. Where do you see it going in the next couple years? Do you have some specific plans or areas that you're looking to grow into in the future?
Oh yes, it's so exciting. We have I did one. It's not an ad, but I placed an announcement in a newspaper.
Okay.
I did that twice, once each month. And wow, it took off. I got calls from all over the United States, the Caribbean, South Korea.
Wow.
Ghana, just Hawaii, everywhere.
Okay.
Alaska, right?
Okay.
It's amazing. And the people are very excited. It's like, oh, thank God someone understands what we need. because
Oh,
no one
wow.
believes the school system, you can only learn 1 year at a time. That's absurd. You would be 100 years old before you really accomplished anything. So that's what we're doing now. I'm training teachers and
Okay.
parents and different learning centers.
Okay.
It's very exciting. I love training the teachers. They're almost in tears. And they say, "Really? Is this all it is?" Yes, this is all it is. And
Wow.
they're very happy with the results.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you see, you'll be traveling outside of Berkeley in the near future, or will you be? Uh, are the teachers you're teaching now mostly in your in local area there?
Well, some of the teachers are. I did get a call from a couple of school board members. They want to talk to me about my program. But
Hmm.
I used to be a flight attendant, right?
Okay.
And aside from teaching, that was the most fun job I ever had. It was so much fun.
Okay.
And
Okay.
meeting people from all over the world that couldn't speak English. It was fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm very well traveled and
Okay.
I'm done with it. I've seen how they act on airplanes.
Okay.
I would end up in jail as a felon.
Okay.
You
So they
know,
got to come. They got to come to you if they want. They want. They want to
they
be taught in
sure
person.
do. They sure do. And then I'm getting a cadre of teachers together who will, under the guidance of my daughter,
Okay.
do the traveling, and my daughter-in-law will do the traveling.
Okay.
No, I'm almost 80 years old,
Oh,
and I
wow.
don't care to go further than San Francisco in a car.
Okay. Yeah. So some exciting plans for growth in the future.
Oh
You
yeah.
you mentioned a couple of school board members. Uh, and we'll have to say what school districts, but have you had discussions with um, sort of administrative and policymakers in education in the past, and how have those things gone?
Oh yes. We received the award from the Berkeley NAACP
Hmm.
because of the work I've been doing over the summer, last summer, during the pandemic,
Okay.
teaching the Berkeley children how to read, all of which now are well in advance of their years, right,
Uh
in
huh.
school. And so they gave me an award for the results. So that group is reaching out to me.
Okay.
Um, Also, there are people throughout the Midwest who have charter schools, the homeschool organizations,
Okay.
and just there's all kinds of groups for literacy and
Okay.
for our children. And so many of them are reaching out, just like the woman who spoke earlier. I will show you how to do it. It's better if I teach you, then you
Okay.
can teach hundreds more than what I can do.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yes. It's,
Okay. And we do have someone has posted the link up here, and if they want to take a look at your site, and then Marianne says you have some amazing genetics, young lady, and and my co-host Greg Roberts said thank you so much for service and being on the show, and of course I echo Greg's comments and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend with us. It's not even noon yet there, so we appreciate you spending some time with us here in
okay.
the
And I
studio.
have to tell you something funny. You want to hear something funny?
Sure, sure.
I'm not good at all this stuff, right? Even though my kids have had computers since they were little kids, right?
Uh huh.
I immediately went that route. But it over the years it's gotten much more complicated. And so
Uh
my
huh.
daughter, I made her get up. This is her day off, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I made her get up early and do me a Zoom on my little computer here, my little
Okay.
laptop. And then I made her do a real pretty background, and I had set up the lighting the way they said do it, on Google, right?
Uh huh.
And
Okay.
and then you call and say we're in the studio. We had to move everything over by the window because they said the lighting has to be sectioned. So, and
Okay.
I just want to thank my daughter and my son for helping me even being able to sit here and talk to you. They did everything. All I did was sit down and rattle off what I
Well, tell them I said thank you for their assistance or participation in today's program. Nothing like having faithful children. And
Yeah.
as we had a chance to talk a little bit before we came on, and I know, like any parent, why don't you brag about your kids a little bit?
Oh, okay. I'll start with my first and only granddaughter.
Okay.
Her name is Ankara,
Okay.
and she is 2, and she knows her ABCs, and she can count to 10. She does not understand 11, 12 yet. All
Okay.
right. And she knows her primary colors.
All
And then
right.
to her mother and father, my daughter-in-law, beautiful young lady, Asian descent from Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore my granddaughter is already bilingual. My son
Awesome.
is the Berkeley City Councilman, and they're
Okay.
both lawyers. And then I
Okay.
have my baby girl who's here with me now and sending me notes as we speak.
Yeah.
And she's the one. Okay, when she was in the 3rd grade, they said, "Oh, there's something wrong with your daughter. She needs to go into special ed."
Okay.
Well, her aunt Elizabeth, the PhD, all of my sisters have their PhD or law degrees. Anyway,
Okay.
said there's nothing wrong with my niece and just don't sign anything. And I didn't. So my daughter not only majored in Spanish and Japanese and learned Italian. Italian,
Mhm.
learned Italy, right? Learned
Uh-huh.
Italian. But she also learned the language I don't know. Most of us don't know, which is higher mathematics.
Okay.
And let's see, who else? And I told you about my father. There's a
Yeah.
mural of him because of his work. He used to create mortgages for the blacks that came here, mostly from Texas and Louisiana.
Okay.
And they couldn't get mortgages, of course not. So he
Sure.
wrote mortgages for them, and he said, "Look, I'll buy the land and I'll buy the equipment, but you got to work it along with the carpenter." And
Okay.
they had to help build their own houses. You want me
Awesome.
to keep going?
Well, I'm enjoying hearing this. I'll tell you a brief story. My parents are from Louisiana. And my great grandmother
Uh-huh.
went to Southern, and she taught at the white school, raised money to start the black school, and so
Oh,
she founded the school down small town down in Louisiana. And so I appreciate hearing your family history, especially just this idea of being able to read. I grew up in a family where everybody read, so even when I meet adults who struggle with reading, my heart goes out to them. But I'm just, it's at the same time it's hard to understand.
yes,
And again, I grew up in a traditional church where there's adults that couldn't read, but it's still um, it's hard to understand functioning and trying to function life when you can't read. So
it's
um,
hard. And there are so many ways to reach out.
yes,
Again, it takes, they have to swallow their pride
yes,
and reach
yes,
out because we're here. We are here to teach you. And if
yes.
you want to learn in a couple of months, call me.
Okay. And my co-host also said, please come back anytime. You have an open invitation. We certainly are going to keep in touch with you and follow what's going on. I think I'm just so fascinated what I'm hearing today, and just the opportunity for us to kind of change the direction of some things that are headed in the wrong way in our communities. You mentioned a lot of the homeschoolers and the growth, especially for Black children that are being homeschooled.
Oh yes,
And then,
and homeless, and the homeless. I teach the
oh
homeless.
wow, okay,
Mhm.
okay. You mentioned the charter schools, which
Yes,
again have an opportunity to do things a little bit different. And I'm not sure. I'm sure they're growing there, just like they are here, but
yes,
maybe the door is there for them to. I don't know to what degree they're governed by. I know they are by the education bureaucracy.
yes.
Maybe there's an opportunity there for them to do some things a little bit different.
A few of them are. A few of them
Okay.
are. Alvin Boutte in Chicago. You may recall his father was one of our black bankers.
Okay.
He has a charter school, and they have my books, and we're scheduling training for his teachers.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay.
And it goes on and on. There's one in East Oakland that wants me. East Oakland is like I don't know, what do we say, like Harlem used to be?
Okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
We have to hurry before it's totally gentrified.
Now it's the place to be, huh?
You know, like I'll send people to Chicago and I say, go to the South Side and see all the wonderful businesses. And they're like, where?
It was a shopping mall, you know. Yeah, yeah,
Parking lot now. The barbecue place is gone, bro.
yes.
So yeah, we're doing what we can, and the more young people come on, the better. Because I
Okay.
tell my kids I'm going to join Oprah in Hawaii
Okay.
and have a cabana boy rub my back. Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, I see you have a passion for this, and you mentioned you taught special ed students.
Yes.
So I'm sensing this passion of teaching and learning didn't just start with you starting the company after that, but I'm sensing that probably some of the things, challenges that you had with students that people thought couldn't achieve, you probably helped overcome some of those barriers as a special education teacher as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have parents come to me in tears because their child is now at least trying. You see,
Yes.
the director of special ed back in Illinois told me to stop teaching these kids because we're losing money out of special ed.
They're moving out of special ed. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
goodness.
indeed.
Yeah.
I enjoy them. The children are awesome, and there is no other able child that I have not been able to teach something to.
Okay.
I gotta tell you this. There was a young man, I taught a woman how to read, a grown woman, and she had a friend whose son was in special ed from like second grade, and now he's in 10th grade high school. And he had been in special ed, and she thought he couldn't learn because they said he couldn't learn. And one day she was taking him to school, and he read the stop sign. And then she went a little further, and he read a street sign. And she said, oh my gosh. So she brought him to me. I taught him the alphabet. I taught him the sounds. In 1 year, that boy was reading at grade level. He had never been taught to read. All he did for those 10 years of public school was draw.
Wow.
So it didn't matter. He graduated high school, went to college, graduated college in art, and ended up being one of those, you know, when you go to a play and they have those sets that are all painted and drawn. That's what he does.
Wow. Wow.
And they thought he was slow because there was an accident. He had a terrible scar above his eyebrow.
Okay.
And he looked like the typical slow person. You can imagine that.
Sure. Yes.
This boy was brilliant and talented. Brilliant.
Wow.
So he's one of my happy stories. And my note to people: don't judge these kids because of the way they look, the color of their skin, the clothes they wear. You know, please don't. I volunteered at that local library for years, and the only thing they had to pay me was to get a library card for everyone in the family.
Okay.
After doing that for 5 years, I don't know if I should tell you this. You might want to check this out.
Okay.
But I was so hurt when that library gave the award to the volunteer of the year to a girl, a white girl, a young white girl who had only been there for 1 semester because she had to do community service.
Okay, let me get this straight. So you're bringing people to the library, getting whole families to get library cards, getting people reading. And in your I should say competition. So when they thought about who can we give an award to for volunteering, we have a young lady, white young lady who's doing community service. That's not even if you have to do community service, are you really a volunteer?
I don't
Because you have to do the community service.
right. And this is in a black neighborhood across the street from a black natural history museum.
Hmm.
And my biggest star was a janitor who wanted to become a sanitation engineer, but he couldn't read the labels. You have to read the labels to mix the chemicals. So I
Sure.
taught him how to do that. And he went on and became an engineer, sanitation engineer for that city.
Okay.
I mean,
Wow.
come on. Who did she listen to?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was hurt. I mean, it just hurt me. And those kinds of slaps in the faces remind me that I'm black.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you do community service, especially when you work with our people, it's I remember Dr. Claude Anderson, one time saying, I love working with our people, but it also comes with a certain amount of strain and stress, and uh, you gotta have a good supply of energy, because you do get those setbacks both
Yes.
from
Notice
inside and from outside.
that didn't stop me.
Yes.
A gentleman named Marcel Davis, he said, don't worry about it. And
Yeah.
he got me a trophy.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, good. You got a trophy for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, folks, we have been talking for the last better part of almost an hour with Rosa Higgs. She dares to say that she can teach people to read 40 days or less. 40 days or less. So we've been having an outstanding discussion here. Um, if you came in on the latter part of this conversation, I hope that we'll run it back on our platforms. But if you come in the latter part, we've been talking about reading, literacy. Maybe there's some things about reading and teaching your kids to read that you aren't familiar with, and what your school system and your children's teachers are doing. There's a chance to maybe get some different information, get a different perspective. So hope that you are picking up on this conversation today. Just kind of recap for our people. Can we have a few minutes left here? Tell folks one more time, what's the name of your program?
the name of my reading curriculum is Read in 40 Hours or Less.
I'm sorry, I keep saying 40 days. To be too
Yeah.
biblical. 40. You change the whole nation in 40 days. 40 hours or less.
Right.
Okay, forgive me for that error.
No, forgive me because I interchange them. I do.
Okay.
I do that. That's my fault.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes,
So read in
ma'am.
40 hours or less.
And
Okay.
my focus is to the influence, the understanding of phonics and how true phonics, which is what I'm teaching,
Hmm.
can free people up to read in 40 hours or less, or 40 days, if you prefer. That's my fault. Okay. It is
Uh-huh.
a specific curriculum that takes students to the highest levels of literacy. Once
Yeah.
they learn to read, then you teach them language arts.
Okay. And folks, we're going to run again. If in addition to our interview, we'll run across the screen again. You can check the YouTube channels, and if folks want to contact you, Ms. Higgs, how can they reach you?
You mean by phone?
No, not by phone. Unless you want people to call you. You have a website, a Facebook page, or something.
Oh, I see what you like my daughter left the room, so
She was like, no.
know. Right. She's shaking her head. Okay, I'm sorry. Here we go. I'm learning. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Do this. Go up in the top line, on your computer, not in the Google search, but go up in the, that bar up there.
Okay.
And you say www, that bar, and go
Okay.
www.com. No, www.read, READIN, and numerical 40, the number 40.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
readin40.com.
Got it. Readin40.com, folks. You can see her website and check out some examples of. Again, you may be thinking, as we've discussed, you may be thinking your kid. Well, my kids already know phonetics. Maybe they. Thank you, Marianne, for posting that again. But maybe you want to check out some of the samples of the students and see if your kids can do that.
Yeah, see if they can read the really big words.
Yes, yeah, that's a way. It's kind of a way to find if you kind of put some material they can't read and see if they, you think you call it decoding.
Yes.
If they can decode and read some of those words. And for some of us adults, we all know some adults that maybe have some issues with reading. So this might be some of our churches, some other programs might be looking to do some things with literacy. There's a couple of initiatives here in our own community that deal with literacy. So this may be a chance for some organizations to maybe contact you.
That would be great. Because I guarantee you, your participants will be able to read the Harvard University freshman vocabulary list.
Wow.
No matter what grade they're in, 4th grade and up. Okay?
That would be something. Guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Well, Ms. Higgs, I have really enjoyed having this conversation with you this afternoon. I so much appreciate you taking the time to not just to first of all share with us your business and your company, but your passion for teaching people to read. It comes through in our discussion. Your heart and your desire to, I think, see people read and people reach their potential.
Well,
So I thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you to your team there, your technical team, for getting us on track. We got a couple, maybe about 2 minutes left. What is it? Anything else that we haven't discussed you want to share with us? And before we go off, and in that context, say something to us about Black History Month as well.
Black History Month. I was thinking, because on one of your shows, you said Black History Month shouldn't be just a month. And, I was thinking every town, every state should celebrate their state's Black history. Mm-hmm. And all how many states are there? And we should all celebrate our state and do like W.B. Du Bois did and put together an encyclopedia of Black history by the states. And it could be from the landing at Plymouth, right?
Yes.
To the civil rights movement, to today. You could break it up into different parts because there are so many people that did so many wonderful things. And I'll tell you, when it came to this program, I felt so bad for these children. I got on my knees and cried to God. I said, Lord, you told me to be a teacher, but I don't know how. And I went back to school and to work, and that wonderful principal said, I got a little money, go over there and learn. Came back, I learned. You learn? Yeah. So, okay, I got a little more money, go over there and learn.
That's awesome.
And I continue to learn about how to teach people to read.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So Black history is reading, and our Black schools are founded in teaching our children to read.
Yes.
That was the impetus of it.
Yes. Any final thoughts you want to share with us, our folks here in Muskegon? And have you ever been to Michigan before?
Oh yes.
Have you been to our side of the state, the Muskegon side, not the Detroit side? But
I went to Detroit. My girlfriend Beverly Payne.
Okay.
I came out here to visit her because she's from, the Bay Area.
Okay.
She since has passed away, but she was on TV, and I really did not enjoy Detroit.
Okay. You did not.
No, it was cold.
We'll have to finish that discussion. Oh yeah, Well, we'll have to come in the summertime if you're not traveling anymore. But if for some reason they get you out of Berkeley, you have an invitation to come to Muskegon in the summertime.
I would love to. I've heard such beautiful things about it, and you don't have a lot of the traditional issues older cities have. So I really look forward to it. Matter of fact, I Googled Muskegon and I'm impressed. I really am.
If you have anybody from Michigan, you say, are you from Muskegon or the Heights? That way they'll know you they'll think you really know what you're talking about.
Oh, cool. All right. All right.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
you've got
Vincent.
to visit the Bay Area.
I may be out there in the near future. Look, our time is running out. I really enjoyed speaking with you. We're going to be speaking again in the future, okay?
Okay.
God bless you. Take care, and we'll be communicating in the future. Folks, this has been Torn in Two. Your host, Gregory Roberts. Pray that he's well. I'm Melvin Burns. You all be blessed. Go out and treat people well.
The wait is over. The all-new Umoja Radio Network, home to over 40 Black-owned radio stations and podcasts, is here for you. Connect